Jai Shriman Narayana. Let me
Jai
see
Shriman Narayana.
if it is recording. Yes, it looks like it's recording. I hope we will not have further technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
But in any case, we know.
Yes.
Okay, what happens
Very
now?
good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you. So we have the subject today. If you want to introduce it.
Yes, thank you, Mataji, and really, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to participate. So, effectively, I was reading from the Taittiriya Upanishad about the definition of Brahman, and what was really interesting in chapter 2 was the verse at the very beginning of chapter 2, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. And they use the word jnanam to sort of define Brahman as one of the sort of definitions of Brahman. And what was really interesting was that the definition there was that of consciousness. And what was really interesting was that I understood jnanam as simply referring to knowledge.
I am stopping you 1 minute because jnanam is one thing, jnanam is another thing.
Indeed. So the definition of jnanam, Mataji, was knowledge, and I took that definition as meaning like bookwise knowledge. You know, when the Gita talks of jnana yoga, and they use the word knowledge. So my understanding of knowledge, Mataji, simply meant like reading a book and gaining knowledge and perhaps contemplating on knowledge. So what I'd like to understand, Mataji, from you is what is knowledge in Vedic terms? What is the definition of knowledge? And what does that mean? When the Gita speaks of jnanam, what does it actually mean? And I'd love to hear you expand on this very important topic.
Okay, so again, we are talking about Jnana Yoga. Jnana is a difficult word to pronounce because it's not ja, it's not gya, it's not dia, but it's something in between. Because jnana means people. Jnana means knowledge. Okay. Anyway, you're mentioning Bhagavad Gita. In fact, there is a particular passage of Bhagavad Gita that I find particularly relevant to this topic, and it is in chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, the verses that go from verse 8 to verse 12. Now, you can check these verses next time when you have a Gita ready, in your hands. Unfortunately, usually I do the screen sharing, but unfortunately I'm having some technical difficulties, so let's not do the screen sharing for now. Anyway, so these verses, starting with verse 8, speak about specifically the definition that Krishna gives about jnana. So, the verse 8 says, Amanitvam badam bhitva mahinsa. Okay. Amanitvam means not boasting, not desiring for honors. Adambhitvam, lack of arrogance. Ahimsa, freedom from hatred. Kshantim, tolerance. Arjavam, straightforwardness. Acharya upasanam, approaching the acharya. Socham, cleanliness or purity. Styriam, steadfastness, Atma Vinigraha, self-control. So, the first verse starts describing jnana as freedom from the desire for honors, lack of arrogance, freedom from hatred, as well as tolerance, simplicity, the act of approaching the acharya, cleanliness, determination, self-control. Then the verse 9 says, Indriya artesu, in the objects of the senses, vairagyam, renunciation, anahankaraha, freedom from the sense of doership, evacha, certainly, and certainly, janma mrityu jara vyadhi, means birth, death, old age, and disease. Dukkham dosham anudarshanam, means the suffering, the defect, seeing clearly. Meaning, renunciation towards the objects of the senses, freedom from the sense of doership, as well as a clear perception of the inherent sufferings and problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. Then we have the third verse, which is verse number 10. Asakti, freedom from attachment. Anabhisvanga, without identifying with emotions and situations. Putra Dara Griha Adishu, regarding the sons, the children, the wife, the house, etc. Nityam, always. Cha, samachittatvam, equal attitude. Ishta anishta upapattishu, on receiving both what is desired and what is not desired. Okay. So, means a freedom from attachment, detachment from all association, identification, and okay, including the sense of belonging towards the children, wife, home, etc., as well as equal attitude when receiving the pleasant and the unpleasant. Then we have the verse 11. Mai chananya yogena bhakti avyabhicharini viviktam desha vivikta desha sevitvam arati jana samsadi. Okay. Mai, to me, Krishna is speaking as the Supreme Brahman. Cha and Ananya, totally focused with no other interest. Yogena, with the connection, the union, the connection. Bhakti, Avyabhicharini, by uninterrupted bhakti. Vivikta desha sevitvam, performing service, meditating in a solitary place. Vivikta desha. Arati is not the arati with the long A, is arati means without attachment.
Right. So it's not like the arati.
No, it's not that has a long A. Okay, this is a short arati. Viviktvam arati. Okay, short A. Without attachment, janasam sadi. The attachment is without the attachment to meeting people or to the company of people. So this means totally, the translation, totally and constantly focusing on me through bhakti yoga, performing service but in a solitary place without attachment from meeting others. Then we have the last verse 12, which closes up the discussion here. And it says, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam Etad Jnanam Iti Praptam Ajnanam Yat Ata Anyatha. Okay, the constant awareness of the original soul is jnana. The realization of the value of knowledge. All this is called jnana, and anything else is ajnana, means the opposite. So, in these verses, Krishna has not mentioned even one single book. Or, academic title. Or academic qualification.
Yes.
So, connecting to the Upanishad, especially the Mandukya Upanishad, which you are studying,
yes.
I am. There is another very popular verse from the Bhagavad Purana.
Yes.
I'm sure you heard about it. That I'm quoting it quite often. It says, Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabdyate. So, tattvam yajnanam advayam. The tattva, the reality, the existence, is that knowledge that is undivided, the complete knowledge, undivided, advayam. And it is called Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. This is what the Tattva Vidas, those who know the Tattva, explain about the Jnana. So, you will find in the Upanishad it is said very clearly that knowledge, jnana, is the essence of reality. Because all reality manifests from the consciousness, from a concept.
So, do you know what's really interesting as the neophyte is that we have this preconceived idea of what knowledge is. So we struggle to understand how knowledge can be. We struggle to understand the term knowledge as applied here.
Yeah, definitely.
We have this very, very preconceived notion, and it's one of the first things that you come across when you study the Bhagavad Gita as a neophyte. Is you come across this term
that
knowledge.
Is also reinforced by the idea that there are different paths of yoga.
Yes.
Karma, jnana.
Yes. And forgive me if this sounds crude, but what you think in your mind is, Mataji, you think, well, just because I know a few facts, how does that make me enlightened? I know it sounds really crude, but
facts. Okay, we have in Sanskrit, we make a distinction between jnana and vijnana, which is in this particular context means respectively theoretical knowledge and practical applied knowledge.
And you mentioned that in your Bhagavad Gita purports as well.
Yeah.
You distinguish between and you stress on the equal importance of both aspects.
Yeah, but the point is the practical application of knowledge doesn't mean anything if you don't have the theoretical knowledge.
Yes, I mean that applies in all walks of life,
yeah,
particularly here.
Exactly, because if you don't know what you're talking about, how can you apply it in practice?
So Mataji, my question here therefore is, okay, we've talked about the theoretical application of knowledge. Somebody's going to then, the neophyte then says, right, what is that knowledge if you were to define its core principles? How does that relate to Brahman? What is that quote unquote God realization knowledge, if that makes sense?
That is knowledge. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if we can reformulate the question.
Yes.
It looks like you're still making a distinction between the knowledge and the object of knowledge.
Yes, and deliberately so, because
Yeah.
this is something that this is a barrier that most people hit
Yeah.
early on.
Exactly.
Which is why I wanted to ask it in such a crude manner.
I'm trying to understand, so there is a verse, I think, in Gita, and it is Jnanam Gyayam, let me see, Jnanam Gyayam, let's see. Yeah. Chapter 18, verse 18. Gita. It says, Jnanam Gyeya Parigyata Trividha Karma Chodana. Karanam Karma Karteti Trividha Karma Sangraha. Okay. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower, these are the three factors that induce action. But these are all one. The knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are all, the Brahman is all the three of them.
Yes. And that's clearly stated in those verses you quoted there, isn't it?
Yeah. So let me see. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. When we speak of knowledge, okay, here, okay, chapter 13, verse 18. Jyotisham apita jyotis tamasa paramuchyate jnanam gyayam gyanagamyam hridhi sarvasya vishtitam. He's talking about the Supreme, okay, and he says, he is the source of light in all luminaries, the Jyotisha, the Jyoti,
Yes.
okay, and is entirely beyond the darkness of ignorance. He is knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge. Verse 18, chapter 13. We're still talking about chapter 13 here.
Yes.
Jnanam Gyayam Gyanagamyam. The Brahman is knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge, and I would say also the knower of the knowledge. Because as in the beginning of Gita, Krishna speaks of the Kshetrajya. So the Kshetrajya is the Atman Brahman.
The field, the knower of the field.
Exactly. So we now understand why Krishna is saying Vasudeva Sarvamiti.
Yes.
And that is also Vasudeva. There is no distinction. There is no real distinction between the knower and the object of and the reality. It's all the reality. It's what we call reality or existence. Sat, Chit, Ananda.
Right, so now we're getting into it. So, Mataji, there's a number of questions.
Yeah.
There's a number of points here. The first is that let's consider two scenarios.
Okay.
Somebody who hasn't realized that this fact, that the knower of the field, the object, etc., is all one, and the second person who does realize that. What would that look like? What are the differences? Is it material identification that it would express
it's a lack of connection. That's why Krishna keeps talking about yoga, connection.
So why I ask this?
Those who cannot see, who cannot perceive, are just disconnected. When you have loose wiring.
Yes. My point is, Mataji, is it's important to get this thinking right early on in your spiritual practice. And my question to you, therefore, is that what would that look like? What would that look like to somebody who perhaps wasn't didn't appreciate this, what mistakes would they make, Mataji, effectively, if that makes sense?
But well, the mistakes are inevitable when we identify with the material objects, like the body and the mind and the objects of the senses, the whatever is on the material level. When we identified with material objects, naturally we will try to pursue the union with the material objects. And that is fundamentally a mistake. It's not that it's a mistake to unite with the material objects, because that is okay. Connecting with the material object is okay, because Krishna says, guna guneshu vartante. The gunas must be engaged in the gunas. The mistake is to pursue that contact, that union with the sense objects, with the material objects. As if we believe, because we get deluded into thinking that we can find happiness in the union with the material objects. That is a mistake. The union with the material objects is okay, but being attached to the union with the material object, pursuing the union with material objects, is a mistake.
Can you give me some examples of the latter that you've come across in your life,
okay,
so that neophytes can avoid that?
Krishna speaks about prasad.
Yes.
Prasad abhigachati. Someone who is not running after the sense objects, but accepts whatever he receives as prasadam, as blessings of God. When we take the prasad, when we honor the prasadam, meaning the food offered to the deity, to God, we take, we honor, it means we take it respectfully, whatever it is. We don't try to, pick and choose. We are not attached to something, raga dvesha. We don't have the raga dvesha attachment problem. Yeah, tell.
But isn't that a given that you accept prasadam for what it is? Surely, Mataji.
Yeah, but that applies to everything in life.
Ah, right, yes. Okay.
Not just to the food that we get from the pujari.
Now you're talking. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Krishna said prasadam adhigachati. He obtains the prasadam. But everything that we receive is prasadam. Even if we die, is prasadam. Because
that's a fundamental shift in mindset.
Yeah, a big one. Yeah.
Yes. So please carry on.
So basically, that's what Krishna says in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Being equal. Sukha dukkha samaya kritva. Jaya jaya labha labho. We should be, equally disposed. Doesn't mean that we don't see the difference. It doesn't mean that we actually want to have, sufferings. That we must enjoy the suffering, or we must reject the happiness, the joys, the pleasure. No. But we should not be attached. We should not be attracted or repulsed. We should take it with an equal vision. It's okay. I don't like this medicine. It's bitter, but I think that, I have to take it. Let's see why this medicine can help me. What is the actual benefit of this medicine? Because, again, I heard that lots of people are saying that the same word in the Chinese language, the same word is used for problem and opportunity. Because we don't know what is good for us. We don't really know. We can get some idea, but we don't know for sure. Because something that we consider bad, it just has to be used in the proper way.
I understand. So the equal vision aspect, I totally...
Exactly.
Yes.
Shitosna, sukha dukkha. Shita ushna means when it's cold. When it's hot, it's hot. Yeah, well, okay.
Fine. So now I'm going to play a Asura's advocate and ask you a question. So the word, the phrase Vasudeva Sarvamiti is a wonderful phrase, and it's, everything is Brahman. So, Mataji, this is where I'm going to ask you a question. Because somebody might say, somebody who worships Yahweh or some other being, or some other being. No, because they let's say I worship some random demonic being without going into names.
Yeah.
But I could easily turn around and say, well, if Vasudeva Sarvamiti, then what I'm worshipping here, whatever that may be, whatever demonic entity that may be, well, that's Brahman, isn't it? So it's of equal relevance to you worshipping Durga, Kali, or Krishna. What would you say to that, Mataji?
Well, it is it's a question of seeing everything together as Brahman. Not with this piece, that piece, the other piece. This is the illusion of duality. The problem is that when you worship Yahweh and Yahweh tells you should not worship any other form of the Brahman, then you are in a soup. Because the real contradiction is coming from Yahweh, not from the Brahman.
No, but Mataji, we have had, again, I'm not going to go into any names, but we've had some people tell us that all religions, and I've been brought up with this, that all religions are different paths to the same goal.
This is the problem of a lack of semantic hygiene. Because when people translate the word dharma with religion, they get confused. Because some religions are not dharmic. So the saying that you are referring to is sama dharma, sarva dharma sama bhava, right?
Yes, but what people do is they translate that into English.
If you invent a religion that says that you must go against the dharma, how can you call it dharma?
So the word that's been misinterpreted as meaning all religions are different paths to the same goal.
Yeah, that's not true.
Isn't quite accurate.
Well, in a sense, Vishwajit, is true, because after doing a lot of mistakes, finally you will understand.
Yes, it's true in a sense.
In a sense, but it's not. I think it's the Shastras say very clearly that one result, by following Sat, we get a result. By following Asat, we get a different result.
Yes, absolutely. Because this is the bit that I sort of wanted to ask you, because you say, we think the Mandukya Upanishad says everything is Brahman.
Of course everything is Brahman, but everything all together.
Right. So
that's what Krishna says. Everything is in me, but I am not in them. Specifically, in each one of them.
So what you're saying
Yeah.
is that Brahman is in everything, but everything is not Brahman. That's effectively
not everything, not separately, not specifically, each thing.
Yes, I understand when it's on its individual level,
Exactly.
it isn't. But when collectively, it is.
Yeah,
So
collectively,
therefore,
it's the sum total of all existence, the supreme being, the supreme existence.
but what you should not do, Mataji, is equate Yahweh to Brahman, because it isn't. That's the bottom line. Am I right there, basically?
Yeah, it's not the complete Brahman. It's that part of Brahman, of the Virat Rupa, that is specifically described as Asura.
So it's effectively a being under immense illusion,
Yeah.
and it cannot be taken as Brahman. You can't say, oh, well, because everything is Brahman, I can worship Yahweh. That doesn't...
then you can also worship your food. Why not? You can also worship your excrements. Why not? It's all Brahman. So why you're eating bread and not your stool?
Absolutely, but you can see why I'm asking the question, can't you?
Yeah, of course. But the people who ask this kind, who bring up this kind of arguments, they are not very intelligent, or maybe not very sincere, because they can understand, that everything together is one thing. A piece of this, a piece of that. The pieces are not independent. They are Brahman when they are all together. Of course, they cannot be separated.
So the analogy here, Mataji, is that a leaf is part of the tree.
Yeah.
But the leaf on its own is not the whole tree.
Exactly.
So you can't, therefore, you can't make that same analogy in essence.
Precisely. When you see a lot of leaves, you can say, oh yeah, that's a tree. Yeah, of course, but if you take one single leaf, that's, you cannot call it a tree. The point is, you see, the problem, again, it comes from the material identification. So when we think about God, materially identified people think that it is one separate person. So you can have, a Krishna and a Yahweh. But Krishna is not separated, and Yahweh is not separated. Krishna is the sum total of everything. We can call it Krishna, we can call him Vishnu, we can call it Param Brahman, Bhagavad, Paramatma, Brahman, whatever. It's the sum total of existence. It's not someone independently individual, limited by time, space, and duality, that we can juxtapose to some other God.
So whereas Yahweh is very much a being that has all those limited features.
Yeah, Yahweh is a jiva, is a conditioned soul. From the description of the Old Testament, we can safely say he's an asura. And that is also what the early Christians were saying. Marcion and the lots of Gnostics, and they were saying, the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, is the bad guy. He's a villain.
Yes. Yes. But I was using that example to just so that I could get it clear in my head what Vasudeva Sarvamiti means.
Yeah.
Rather than necessarily pick on Yahweh. It was only just so that...
But you can say again, instead of Yahweh, you can put, I don't know, any other, even the Devas are not God.
Correct.
They're parts of God. They're Amsa. When Krishna says in Gita, Mama iv Amsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, the Devas are Jivas.
And I only say this, Mataji, because there is a movement nowadays which seeks to quote unquote harmonize all religions, and it seeks to put all religions on an equal footing. And Hindus fall for this hook, line, and sinker. So they say that Christianity, all these other religions are different paths to the same goal. But that is not quite what the Shastra is saying. Would that be right, Mataji?
Okay, the Shastras says that the result of worshipping Sat and the result of worshipping Asat is different. Gita, Krishna Gita said, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitrin Yanti, Pitrin Vrata, Bhutanti Yanti Bhuteja, Yanti Mamya Jinopi Mam. And it says that, those who worship the Devas go to the Devas, those who worship the Pitris, the virtuous ancestors go to the Pitris. Those who worship the ghosts and the living, the individual beings go to them. And again, in talking about the faith, the three types of religion of Shraddha, Krishna makes the distinction. The people that are under the influence of Sattva, they worship the divine. Means the Devas, God, Vishnu, the Sattva. The people who are under the influence of Rajas worship the Asuras and the powerful personalities. And the people who are under the influence of Tamas, they worship ghosts, people, beings lower beings.
And Mataji, that makes complete sense, because what we're now doing is we're doing a deep dive into that first, Sat, Chit, and Anand, the Sat aspect, which is existence,
Sattva.
because Sattva, because that what you're meaning here is that the Sat is that which is true, and Yahweh or whatever being you want is a conditioned jiva. It has it's not the supreme.
Yeah, influenced by ignorance and passion and greed.
Yes, it's influenced.
Yeah, that's why Krishna explains so many times, speaks so much about the gunas in Bhagavad Gita. So in this universe, from the lowest level to the highest level within this material universe, everything is controlled by the gunas.
So in reality, there is no way that being fulfills the definition of Sat, isn't it, Mataji? Because it doesn't. So therefore,
of course not. But not even the devas in the material world can be worshipped individually as God.
Correct. This is my point, Mataji, because most Hindus don't understand what you've just said now.
Yeah.
So they think, I'm worshipping.
Yeah, why you don't worship Indra, instead of Krishna?
Yes. So I think the word Sat, the true definition you've drilled into here, and I think that it was very important to understand that properly. So my next point, Mataji, you've said Sat, Chit. Can you please talk a little bit about what Chit actually means? Because there's all sorts of confusion on that, Mataji.
Okay, Chit means consciousness, awareness, knowledge, but in a very wide sense. Everything that is the power of manifestation. Now, we have, again, the chapter 13 that we were discussing about what jnana is and so on, speaks specifically about the Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay. someone
And
is
whilst
trying
you're
to...
doing that, I only asked this because, again, a lot of people gloss over this without truly understanding Chit.
Yeah,
It would be great
exactly.
to
The
understand
point,
what
yeah,
that
we
means.
need to understand Purusha and Prakriti are one. You cannot separate the Prakriti from the Purusha. Okay? You cannot separate the Shakti from the Shaktiman. Because without the power, the omnipotent is powerless, literally. Literally. Powerless means without the power. So, the Prakriti is part, integral part of the Brahman. Brahman is both male and female. This is also what the Upanishads say. The problem is that, again, when we translate, in Sanskrit, there is no distinction in the singular third person. Because sa can be both masculine, feminine, or even neutral. In English, we need, in general, in the Western languages, we need to specify if it is male or female or neuter in English. In other languages, you only have male and female. But, God is both. So
I understand, Mataji. But,
yeah, we have the problem there is that God is, again, Jnana, Jnaya, Jnanagamya. Is the knowledge, the object of knowledge, the purpose of knowledge, and also the Kshetragya, the knower of the field. So we cannot separate. Because God is everything.
Yes.
Again, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. It's both the knowledge and the object of knowledge, and it's a principle of the knowledge that perceives the knowledge. Now, the difference, when we speak of manifestation, Prakriti means manifestation. Prakriti means that which creates, that which manifests. Literally, grammatically speaking, etymologically speaking, Prakriti. What does that mean in Sanskrit? That which makes, right? So, again in Gita, Krishna is confirming Prakrite kriyamana niguna karvani sarvasaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Everything is done by the Prakriti. So Prakriti is the manifestation, is the knowledge, the consciousness in the manifesting form. So the knowledge is not just the perception, it's the perception that goes into action.
So,
yeah.
Mataji, when I speak to various people,
Yeah.
devotees, and they say, and I say, I ask them, can you please tell me what is God? They say God is Satchitanand, and they use the word Chit, and they gloss over it. And many of us think, well, you seem to know what it is, but you're struggling to tell me. So here, Chit is consciousness. But Mataji, can I ask you,
Yeah.
what is the distinguishing feature of Chit when you talk of God compared to consciousness when you talk of anything else? What is it about Chit that is unique to Brahman, Mataji? That's my question, because we hear the word consciousness, we hear the word Chit, and then I'm there thinking, well, I need to know what Chit is specific to Brahman. If I want to know what it is, what is God, I'd love to hear you talk a bit about that.
Okay. Unique to Brahman, I think it's a bit of a contradiction in terms. Because,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But please.
Brahman is everything that exists. So, Chit or consciousness or awareness is the nature of Brahman, is the characteristic of Brahman. Just like Sat. Sat, Chit, Ananda. This is the nature of Brahman. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Atman. Everything that exists, the nature of everything that exists is existence itself, permanent existence, Sat, Chit, awareness, knowledge.
Yes. Yes.
And Ananda means happiness. Everything is intrinsically happiness. That's the nature of existence.
Indeed. So again, it's hard sometimes for those of us not in, when we take material into that. But you mentioned Chit, consciousness. What is it about? Is that undefinable, Mataji, in terms of what is it about consciousness? Because a lot of people who are raised in the West will say, well, I understand that if you take a body who's alive and then when that body dies, there's a difference, and that difference is consciousness. Yeah. So how does that relate? And that is the Atman. When
the problem is that these people cannot recognize consciousness when it's covered.
Correct.
Like, if they find, for example, a body in coma is not conscious, but it's alive.
Yes.
And even if we want to go further, even a dead body is conscious, in the sense there is a lot of consciousness in the cells, in the microbes, in the microorganisms, and like the consciousness is everywhere. The point is that, can we see it? Maybe not. So you are reading the Upanishads about the 4 states of consciousness.
Yes, correct.
And only the Jagruti is readily visible. Those people say, we can see that you are conscious because you are awake. That is called Jagruti.
Yes.
But already you cannot see the Swapna.
No.
Even less you can see the Susupti.
Yes. But it's there because you dream at night. And you Sushupti's there simply given the fact that there's a lot of part of the night when you don't dream at all and you're in deep sleep. So you are aware of it. It's the awareness, isn't it, Mataji?
Yeah, but they're not aware that you are aware.
No.
And what to speak of the Turiya? The Turiya is everywhere. It doesn't depend on the body.
Yes. So Chit effectively, Mataji, just for my clarity, it effectively means consciousness. Is that right? If I try and explain this to someone else, what Chit means is it's the nature of consciousness, pure consciousness. Is that what Chit effectively means, Mataji?
Yeah. Because Brahman, the existence, is consciousness. And consciousness or knowledge is the basis of existence. What is existence? It's a manifestation of a concept.
Yes. Personality is a manifestation of consciousness.
Everything that exists is a manifestation of a concept.
So Prakriti effectively is the things that are springing up on the material plane. Well, that's one part of Prakriti.
We have two functions of Prakriti. Apara Prakriti and Para Prakriti. Aparayam, Krishna is saying, Krishna says this material energy is made of 8 elements. Bhinna Prakriti Rashada. And then he says, Aparayam idantanyam. There is another which is different from the apara prakriti function. It's always the same prakriti, but it's a different function. And that different function is the spiritual energy, the spiritual nature. And the Atmans are para prakriti, are Yogamaya. All the spiritual manifestations, in this world and in everywhere, all the existence, the spirit, the transcendence is the supreme nature, the Yogamaya, the para prakriti, the supreme prakriti, the supreme form of prakriti.
Yes, but this all stems from pure consciousness, in effect. Basically.
Exactly.
That's my point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that bit totally get Jin. I'd love to hear the last one, Anand, because please don't laugh when you hear this.
No, it's
bliss, bliss. Again, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
How do you relate me? How do you relate somebody laughing and joking and in a state of ecstasy to God? What does that mean? Because again, you know, people say Satchitanand as if like I'm expected to sort of like relate that to the material world. So
Ananda is also another very interesting concept. The point is that what exists for a reason. And that gives you happiness. It makes you feel the happiness because everything is perfect. Na sochati na kankshati. Samasarvesha bhutesha. When you actually realize Ananda, Sat Chit Ananda, when you realize Sat means eternal, the existence is eternal, nothing is going to be lost. Nasato vidyate kvachit. You know, what it was Asat, it can never really exist because it's a lack of existence. You know.
So absolutely. So what you've really gone into the detail of Sat because you've talked about that which is temporary, i.e. Yahweh's material body, Asat, versus that which is permanent, which is Krishna or
which is Brahman, Param Brahman,
which is pure consciousness. So you've really gone into that. You've gone into the Chit because you've talked about God being pure consciousness, and you've talked about that. And again, that bit totally clear. What people struggle on is the last bit. Because they think,
I believe they struggle all over the place. All over the shop.
All over the place. But,
all over the shop.
They struggle all over. Yeah, they do, but particularly this one because they're thinking, what does bliss have to do with God? So I'd love to hear you connect this bit of it, if that's okay, Matt.
Bliss is even on the conditioned level. What are we looking for? Constantly. We are looking for a permanent situation.
Yes.
We are looking for knowledge to understand and, you know, to be able to relate, understand, you know, and we are looking for happiness.
Correct. No one can deny that.
No even on the conditioned level. The point is that the conditioned souls are looking for this stuff in the wrong place.
They're looking for this stuff which is asap, effectively.
Exactly. They're looking for permanent existence in things that are temporary. They're looking for knowledge in the condition of ignorance, of duality, of illusion.
Yes.
You know, of confusion. And they're looking for happiness in the things that will create suffering. Adyantavanta. Because they have a beginning and an end.
Yes.
And that is suffering in itself. Because it's not permanent. Adyantavanta. Nateshura Mate Buddha. The intelligent people who are enlightened, they are not trying to find happiness in things that cannot give you real happiness. They give you a spark of joy and pleasure.
Yeah.
And then you lose it.
It has a temporary, it has a permanent ending. So the difference here, Mataji, is between person A who seeks to have the best job, the best house, everything, but everyone knows that's going to come to an end at some point or other. Whereas the person who seeks Brahman or God consciousness, that's permanent because that is something that will never
lose it. So, it's us. It's our nature.
So that's what the word Anand actually means, rather than because everyone thinks that's like earthly joy, but
No,
like
that's
temporary joy.
sukha. That you know,
Yes.
that's not Anand. Anyway, you know, okay. I mean, let them try.
No,
They want to
I'm only
try.
doing this because I needed to gain a deeper understanding of what God is, because we always hear Satchitanand and everyone glosses over it, but I think dissecting each of these components I think is really, really important,
Of
because
course.
because otherwise you, going back to how we started the discussion, you go into it with a sense of duality, with a sense of everything is temporary.
Yeah,
And I guess that's what you're trying to
yeah.
avoid,
You know,
Mataji. I guess that's the
limited
point.
by time, space, and duality.
Because if you want to do sadhana, if you really want to go into Sanatana Dharma, the first aspect is to understand what you're looking for, and to know what you're looking for, and to define what you're looking for, like everything in life. And I think people gloss over Satchitanand because they say, well, who is
They
God?
cannot understand what it means. It's not that they gloss over, they have no idea. You know, just flies over their head. You know, like what? You know, we saw a Satchitananda before. You know, what is a Satchitananda? We don't know.
No, but my point is that there's people who are senior devotees in organizations. I'm not going to mention their names or specifics, but they will use the word Satchitanand because they've memorized it from someone else.
You know, they are also using the word Krishna, and they have no idea what Krishna is.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, they're talking about Vaishnava and Vishnu, you know, and Radha. They have no idea. They have their own fantasy, because their so-called exclusive devotion is not supported by Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Di, and everything.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a fantasy.
But my point here, Mataji.
Yeah.
Yes, I think my point here was that it's important for people to understand Satchitanand because it's very, very different from the Abrahamic and modern perception of what God is, because it's vastly different. We are not talking a man in the sky. We are not talking a creator in isolation. We're not talking about someone who is, because if you talk to some people, they'll say, oh, God is an omnipotent entity. God is
they also say is omnipresent.
Omnipresent, yes. So these
but they don't understand what omnipresent means. They're just repeating like parrots. You know, if they really understood what omnipresent means, wow.
So Mataji, on that note, and again, that you brought this nice, you brought me to a nice point, which is, so you were the omnipresent. So say, Mataji, would it be fair to say that God is present in every atom? That's what Shastra says, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
So even a piece of wood, Mataji, which is comprised of many atoms, God is present in that piece of wood.
Even in your shoes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So God is, would you say that is the true definition of what omnipotent means?
Omnipresent. Yeah.
Omnipresent, yes.
Yeah.
Omnipresent. That's the true definition of
exactly. But the point is, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya are making us see things differently. Mahamaya, because, you know, we need to grow up, you know, and start, you know, making an effort in the right direction. And Yoga Maya, because if we see God as omnipresent, we get confused in our devotion, in our bhakti. So how can we focus? How can we meditate? How can we worship? That's why Krishna in Gita is saying, for those who are attached to the non-manifested, it's very difficult to meditate on God. Because we need to focus on a form. But we need to understand that form is just a form manifested by Yoga Maya of something that has all the forms, not that has no forms, but has all the forms. It's not limited to one form. This is the problem of so-called Mayavadi or impersonalists. Because people say, Mayavadi say that God has no form. Okay, that's a big misunderstanding. Because the Brahman it's not that the Brahman doesn't have any form. The Brahman has all the forms at the same time. And this is very nicely put when, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shows the universal Viratrupa, the universal form to Arjuna, and the text say, Iha, here, in one spot, in one place. This is something that only the Vedic knowledge can give, and has given the concept of infinite and infinitesimal. The decimal system, the zero, the infinite. This idea didn't exist in the European or Middle Eastern or whatever cultures. They didn't have the concept of zero.
Of course. So Mataji, so what this means is in practice is that God is omnipresent.
Yes.
Because God is present in everything. But you need to focus on something. Otherwise, no human being can focus on everything all in one go.
Exactly.
So Yoga Maya comes into play.
Yeah.
And what you see is the manifestation of personality.
Yeah.
And personality then enables us as conditioned souls to focus on one point and on one being.
Yeah.
Because it is impossible to focus on every atom of every little thing at the same time.
We can make a very simple, very practical example with the molecules of water. There are molecules of water everywhere in the air. Even in the driest of the deserts, you have at least, I think, 10% of humidity. But you cannot go around, in the desert and try to drink the water from the air. Because your body has more water than the air in the desert, so you are going to lose water, not get it. Now, the point is, Yoga Maya is the condenser that manifests the water in the form that we can appreciate.
Yes. So, when people use the word Mayavadi, we're not going to go into any specific examples. what they're meaning is somebody who allegedly is, because I've not seen anyone, stuck on the impersonal level, focusing on every single atom of everything, can't get their head past Yoga Maya as a personality.
No, they mean, when they say Mayavadi in a disparaging manner, they mean that they want to refer to people who are following illusion, Mahamaya.
Right, okay.
But that's not what the Advaita, what Adi Shankar was teaching.
No.
So the Mayavadi label is just, a slur.
Yeah, no, I mean, my understanding of an impersonalist is someone who hasn't got past the stage of God not having a form, who is still at the stage where God is in every atom, and for some reason, whatever, I've never met a person like this, has totally ignored the idea of Yoga Maya. That's my impression of what an impersonalist truly is.
Yeah, there is a big gap in the knowledge part of it. Yeah.
So that again makes complete sense, because it now ties in the fact that in the Bhagavad Gita we talk of Vishnu entering every atom, isn't it, Mataji?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Manifesting, not entering, manifesting. That's a different thing. Because yes, being omnipresent, he was already within every atom. But it manifests in every atom. When we say entering, I think it's not correct. You know, we should say manifest.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
You know, it's more correct. Now, I know it's difficult because I even, you know, I acknowledge, I realize that even I was using many terms incorrectly because, you know, I had been, you know, conditioned, you know, to use those terms in that way. But that doesn't mean they're correct. So I don't know if I will have the time and opportunity to do the proper editing in my books, you know, but we should understand, you know, the actual deeper meaning.
Yes. So Mataji, do you think that today we have covered a very good definition of what knowledge and Brahman is? Do you think that's been a reasonable discussion on these points?
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable discussion of jnana on Brahman, which is conscious Satchidananda. Yeah, I think. Of course, it's been a pretty technical discussion, you know, that not everyone will be able to grasp, especially if they don't have a sufficient background in philosophy. If they haven't properly read Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, it will be a bit difficult to understand. But yeah, well, you know, we have different types of listeners.
Well, of course, but Mataji, there is something that I'd like to sort of to ask you about, which is when someone, what is God? And this is the big difference between the Vedic definition. All you get is what are the functions of God. Like God is a creator, God is omnipotent, God is eternal. So that's the best you might get. Whereas here, you've actually got a solid, holistic definition of what God is, because God is made of consciousness. So
no, but
I
you know,
see a
God
distinction.
Yeah, God is adakshanja and achintya. You have to experience. You cannot just explain theoretically. You know, theory is good, is important, but it's not sufficient. You know, we have to experience, we have to realize the transcendence. And this starts by overcoming the material identification regarding our own self. If we understand the Atman, we can understand the Brahman. If we can understand the Brahman, we can understand the Atman. Because they are one. So,
yes,
unless we overcome the material limitations, you know, the identification with the material elements, with time, space, individuality, and, you know, all these limitations, we need to overcome them, go beyond them, and situate ourselves on what Krishna in Gita describes as Brahma Bhuta, the existence of Brahman, the transcendental existence. Spiritual life. Then, when we are situated on the realization of Brahman, of the transcendence, then we can start practicing, we can obtain the real bhakti. Before that, it's just, training, exercise, practice. It's not,
Yes.
not the real thing.
But what you've said there is also important, because God is to be experienced, but at the same time, we have to also not arm ourselves, but at the same time, we have to prepare ourselves for the correct mindset to experience God. And I think
experience realization, is the application of theoretical knowledge. Without theoretical knowledge, we cannot start anything.
And would you therefore say that what we've covered today has been that theoretical knowledge that people can then take in their application, Mataji? That's my point, because unless you grasp these,
listen. If you want to build a house, okay, you need the theoretical knowledge of how the house is built. You need to know what is a load-bearing wall, what are the foundations, what is a roof, what are the walls, Then this is the theoretical knowledge. Then you have to apply it in practice by putting the bricks in the proper place. And that is applied knowledge. If you don't have the theoretical knowledge, you're just going to make a mess of bricks. You're not going to make a house.
Yes.
And then when you have actually built the house, you can actually enter in the house. And you have a house. Finally, you have it. That is realization. You have realized. You are experiencing the reality of the house. Until the house is built, you cannot experience the reality of the house. It's still a concept.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we've covered that very, very nicely today, because you'll be very surprised how many people, like myself, didn't have the correct understanding of Satchitanand prior to sort of entering this path properly. So I think that's been very, very helpful, Mataji.
Well, that's why we do what we do. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. I'd like to send my obeisance and send my thanks to you, and for the next time for sure.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Jai Shriman.
Jai Shriman. Jai Shriman.